In the dense fog of a remote countryside, Blackwood Manor stood as a testament to time's relentless march. Once a grand estate, it had been abandoned for decades, its windows shattered and its doors creaking with every gust of wind. The locals spoke of the manor in hushed whispers, warning outsiders of the sinister presence that dwelled within its decaying walls. Evelyn, a daring urban explorer, was drawn to Blackwood Manor by these very rumors. Equipped with only a flashlight and her camera, she ventured into the darkened halls, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. Each step she took echoed through the empty corridors, amplifying her solitude. As she explored, Evelyn stumbled upon an old diary tucked away in a dusty drawer. The entries were penned by a young woman named Eliza Blackwood, who once lived in the manor. Eliza's words told a tale of love and loss, but as Evelyn read further, the diary's tone shifted to one of fear and desperation. Eliza wrote of strange occurrences, whispers in the night, cold hands touching her in her sleep, and the constant feeling of being watched. Her final entry spoke of a seance gone wrong, an attempt to contact her deceased lover that had unleashed something far more malevolent. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as she closed the diary. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted, and she could see her breath forming in front of her. The once silent manor now seemed to come alive with sinister energy, shadows dancing on the walls as if mocking her presence. Desperate to escape, Evelyn retraced her steps, only to find the door she had entered through now firmly shut. Panic set in as she tugged at the handle, but it refused to budge. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of malevolence, pressing down on her from all sides. Evelyn's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. In the suffocating blackness, she heard footsteps approaching, slow and deliberate. She held her breath, hoping it was just her imagination, but the footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped right in front of her. A cold hand grasped her shoulder, and Evelyn screamed, breaking free and stumbling backward. She felt her way along the walls, desperate to find another exit. The sound of whispers filled the air, voices speaking in a language she couldn't understand, growing louder and more frantic. In her blind panic, Evelyn tripped over a loose floorboard and fell, landing hard on the ground. As she struggled to get up, she noticed a faint glow emanating from beneath the floor. She pried up the board to reveal a hidden staircase leading down into the darkness. With no other option, Evelyn descended the stairs, the glow growing brighter with each step. At the bottom, she found herself in a small, candlelit chamber. In the center stood a cracked mirror, its surface rippling like water. She approached it cautiously, drawn by an inexplicable force. As she gazed into the mirror, Evelyn saw not her reflection, but the anguished face of Eliza Blackwood. Eliza's eyes were wide with terror, her mouth forming a silent scream. Behind her, a shadowy figure loomed, its eyes burning with an unnatural light. Eliza's hands reached out from the mirror, grasping for Evelyn, who tried to pull away but found herself unable to move. The shadowy figure stepped closer, its presence filling the room with a suffocating darkness. Evelyn felt a cold, clammy hand wrap around her wrist, pulling her toward the mirror. Desperate, Evelyn closed her eyes and screamed, using every ounce of her strength to break free. When she opened her eyes, she found herself back in the manor's main hall, the mirror shattered at her feet. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by an eerie silence. Evelyn didn't wait to find out if the nightmare was truly over. She ran to the door, which now opened easily, and fled the manor, vowing never to return. As she looked back, she saw Eliza's anguished face staring at her from a second-story window, a silent plea for help. Years later, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that she had left something unfinished at Blackwood Manor. The memory of Eliza's desperate eyes haunted her dreams, and she knew that the malevolent presence within the manor still lingered, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander in. Greyfield Hospital, once a bustling medical facility, now stood as a relic of the past, its corridors echoing with the memories of suffering and death. Abandoned for over 50 years, it was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of those who had died within its walls. Dr. Marcus Hunt, a paranormal investigator, was drawn to the hospital by these tales of spectral activity. Armed with his equipment and a skeptical mind, he entered the decaying building, determined to uncover the truth behind the ghostly legends. As Marcus navigated the darkened halls, he felt a cold breeze brush past him, carrying with it the faint scent of antiseptic. The hospital's eerie silence was occasionally broken by the distant sound of footsteps and the soft murmurs of unseen voices. In the old surgery ward, Marcus set up his cameras and EMF detectors. As he reviewed the footage, he noticed a shadowy figure moving in the background, darting in and out of the frame. Intrigued, he followed the figure deeper into the hospital. The figure led him to the psychiatric wing, a place where the most tormented souls had been confined. The air here was thick with despair, and Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of dread as he walked through the narrow corridors, the walls stained with time. In one of the rooms, he found an old patient file. The file belonged to a woman named Abigail Reed, who had been committed for hearing voices and seeing visions. Her notes described a malevolent entity that tormented her, driving her to madness. As Marcus read, he heard a soft, mournful wail echoing through the halls. He followed the sound to an old treatment room where a broken gurney lay in the center. The room was filled with a palpable sense of sorrow, and Marcus felt a cold hand brush against his cheek. Turning, he saw the ghostly figure of Abigail Reed standing before him. Her eyes were hollow, her face twisted in anguish. She reached out to him, her voice a whisper of despair. "Help me. It's here." Before he could respond, she vanished, leaving Marcus with a sense of profound unease. Determined to uncover the truth, Marcus delved deeper into Abigail's history. He discovered that she had been subjected to brutal electroshock therapy in an attempt to cure her visions. The treatment had only worsened her condition, and she had died a broken woman. The more Marcus learned, the more he felt a sinister presence closing in on him. Shadows moved on their own, and he began to hear whispers in the dark, taunting him. The hospital seemed to come alive with malevolent energy, as if it were trying to drive him away. Late one night, while reviewing his footage, Marcus saw something that chilled him to the bone. In one of the frames, the shadowy figure that had been following him was clearly visible. It was a tall, dark entity with burning red eyes, its face twisted into a grotesque grin. Realizing that he was in grave danger, Marcus decided to leave Greyfield Hospital. But as he made his way to the exit, the entity blocked his path, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It reached out to him, its touch icy cold, filling him with a paralyzing fear. Desperate, Marcus fought to break free, but the entity's grip tightened, pulling him deeper into the darkness. He could hear Abigail's voice, pleading with him to destroy the hospital and free the souls trapped within. With a final surge of strength, Marcus broke free and ran for his life. Outside, he set the hospital ablaze, watching as the flames consumed the building. The screams of the tormented souls echoed in his ears, and he could see the shadowy figure writhing in the inferno, its grip on the mortal world finally broken. Years later, the charred remains of Greyfield Hospital still stood as a reminder of the horrors that had taken place within its walls. Marcus never spoke of his encounter, but he knew that the spirits of those who had suffered there were finally at peace, free from the malevolent entity that had tormented them for so long. Nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains, the forest of whispering pines was shrouded in mystery. Locals spoke of strange lights, eerie sounds, and the sudden disappearances of those who ventured too far into its depths. It was said that the forest was cursed, haunted by the spirits of the damned. Claire and Jake, avid hikers with a taste for the supernatural, decided to explore Whispering Pines. Armed with a map and camping gear, they set out early one morning, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within the dense foliage. The forest was beautiful, but an air of foreboding hung over it. As they hiked deeper into the woods, the usual sounds of wildlife faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches whispering secrets to the wind. Claire felt a chill run down her spine, but Jake dismissed it as just her imagination. They set up camp near a small clearing as night fell, the darkness swallowing the forest. As they sat around the campfire, strange sounds echoed through the trees, faint whispers, the rustling of leaves, and an occasional soft moan. They brushed it off as the wind, but unease settled in their hearts. In the middle of the night, Claire awoke to find the campfire still burning, its flames casting long, dancing shadows. She heard a soft humming, like a lullaby, and saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was a woman, her face pale and eyes hollow, staring directly at Claire. Claire called out to Jake, but he remained asleep, oblivious to the apparition. The woman began to approach, her movements slow and deliberate. Claire felt paralyzed with fear, unable to move as the figure drew closer. Just as the woman reached out to touch her, Claire screamed, waking Jake. The apparition vanished, leaving Claire shaken and terrified. She recounted what she had seen, and Jake, though skeptical, suggested they leave at first light. But as dawn broke, they found that the forest had changed. The paths they had followed were gone, replaced by dense undergrowth and unfamiliar terrain. They wandered for hours, their sense of direction lost. The forest seemed to twist and turn, leading them in circles. Strange symbols carved into the trees appeared everywhere, and the whispers grew louder, filling their minds with dread. They realized they were not alone. Something was watching them. Exhausted and desperate, they stumbled upon an old cabin hidden deep within the forest. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. They entered cautiously, hoping to find a way out or at least some shelter. The cabin was filled with old, dusty furniture and strange artifacts. On a table, they found an ancient book filled with dark rituals and spells. The book spoke of a curse placed upon the forest by a powerful witch who had been wronged by the townspeople centuries ago. Her spirit and those of her victims haunted the woods, seeking vengeance. As they read, the temperature in the cabin dropped, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They felt a presence watching them, pressing in from all sides. The door slammed shut, and the windows rattled violently. The spirit of the witch appeared before them, her eyes burning with anger. She spoke in a voice that resonated with ancient power, telling them they would never leave the forest alive. Claire and Jake tried to plead for their lives, but the witch's spirit was relentless. She raised her hand, and the symbols carved into the trees began to glow, filling the cabin with an eerie light. Desperate to escape, Jake grabbed the book and began to read a banishment spell aloud. The witch's spirit screamed in fury, her form flickering like a dying flame. The cabin shook violently, and the ground beneath them began to crack and split, as if the forest itself were coming alive. With a final desperate effort, Claire joined Jake in chanting the spell. The witch's spirit was pulled into the glowing symbols, her screams echoing through the forest. The light intensified, blinding them, and when it faded, the witch was gone, and the cabin was silent once more. Exhausted and shaken, Claire and Jake stumbled out of the cabin to find the forest had returned to its normal state. The paths were clear, and the oppressive atmosphere had lifted. They made their way back to civilization, vowing never to speak of what they had encountered. But the memory of the witch's fury haunted their dreams, a reminder of the curse that still lingered in Whispering Pines.